Hey everyone, and welcome back to the show. Today, we're diving into a story that's been bubbling up in the tech world, especially for anyone working in AI startups in Silicon Valley. It's about a platform that's arguably as crucial as your passport if you're looking to make it big in the open source AI space. We're talking about GitHub.
That's right. I mean, without hundreds of new stars on GitHub, it's almost like you don't have that crucial tech passport you mentioned. Especially for open source AI projects, GitHub isn't just a place for collaboration and iteration. It's really the key channel to showcase your technical prowess, build your reputation, and get vital feedback. Those stars behind a project actually represent real developers' interest and trust. It signals its potential for spread and its user base.
Absolutely. It's a natural hub for core technical talent and early adopters. So, when news broke recently that GitHub's CEO suddenly resigned and the platform would be fully integrated into Microsoft, it sent shockwaves through the AI tech community. The big question on everyone's mind is, will GitHub lose its independence? And is this the end of the open source spirit as we know it?
It's a really significant moment, you know? Many are asking if this marks the end of an era. The news came out in mid-August this year. Thomas Dohmke, who was the CEO of GitHub, announced his departure. What followed was even more surprising. Microsoft didn't name a new CEO for GitHub. Instead, they announced that GitHub would no longer operate independently, but would be fully integrated into a new division called Microsoft Co-AI, which was only established back in January.
Wow, so a full absorption, not just a change of leadership. It really makes you wonder about the journey of the people involved, too. I remember hearing about Thomas Dohmke in his past. Wasn't he involved with Microsoft before even joining GitHub as CEO?
He absolutely was. If we go back about 8 years, Thomas Dohmke was a co-founder of a company called Hockey App. Their software was designed to help developers with beta testing mobile apps and collecting crash reports. He built a lot of buzz around his work. His company was actually acquired by Microsoft, becoming part of their mobile business, and Thomas himself joined Microsoft. Fast forward a bit, and he became GitHub's chief product officer in 2021. Just a few months after that, GitHub's then CEO, Nat Friedman, announced he was leaving to return to his startup roots, and Thomas stepped up to become CEO.
So he had this whole journey within Microsoft, then leading GitHub, and now he's also stepping down. And like you said, no replacement CEO. That's a pretty big signal, isn't it?
It really is. On August 11th, Thomas also suddenly announced his resignation. In a blog post, he actually used his native German to say goodbye to GitHub and its massive developer community, echoing Friedman's words, saying his startup roots were calling him back. But what caught everyone off guard was that Microsoft didn't appoint a new GitHub CEO this time. Instead, John Capocella, the head of Microsoft's Co-AI division, announced that GitHub would no longer operate independently. It would fully merge into Co-AI.
That's a pretty stark change from how things were, especially since Microsoft acquired GitHub back in 2018. It feels like a lot of people, myself included, kind of forgot that GitHub was even owned by Microsoft because it always seemed to operate so separately. What was that dynamic like post-acquisition?
You're not alone. Many people were surprised. The truth is, for those 7 years since the acquisition, Microsoft's presence was actually quite minimal. GitHub, as a subsidiary, pretty much maintained its independent operations and stuck to its unique corporate culture, which is deeply intertwined with the idea of open source. To me, GitHub was never just a platform, it was a community, a place where developers who believed in the open source movement could collaborate and really drive software development forward.
And that community aspect is huge for developers, right? So, what are the specific concerns bubbling up now that this integration is happening? Jasper John, the founder and CEO of Hyperbolic, told us that developers are mainly worried about GitHub's future independence. What does that really mean for them?
Yeah, those concerns are coming from a couple of angles. First, there's a worry that GitHub's business decisions will become too aligned with Microsoft's Azure cloud and AI strategies. This could mean a heavier reliance on Microsoft's infrastructure and potentially a shift from free features to paid ones. Secondly, with so many labs competing in the AGI or artificial general intelligence space, developers are worried that Microsoft might use the code uploaded to the platform to train its own AI models without clear guidelines or compensation.
Those are definitely valid worries, especially given how much data is on GitHub. But on the flip side, some people are saying this architectural adjustment could actually be a good thing, that it might strengthen AI tools and make development even smoother. So, why do you think Microsoft decided to make this move now? And to understand that, maybe we should quickly trace GitHub's own history.
That's a great point. To understand Microsoft's play, we need to go back to GitHub's roots. The story really begins in 1991, when a Finnish-American engineer named Linus Torvalds created the Linux kernel, which became the core system running countless servers, Android phones, and supercomputers worldwide. Then, in 2005, he wrote Git, a version control system. This was the official version control tool for Linux. What version control does is track and manage code changes, which is super important. It lets every developer keep a complete history of the code on their computer and makes it easy for multiple people to collaborate.
So Git was powerful, but maybe not the easiest to use, especially for newcomers. That's where GitHub came in, right?
Exactly. Git was mostly command line based at first, requiring users to understand a lot of jargon, making it a high barrier for beginners. That's where GitHub entered the scene. In 2007, a young guy named Chris Wenstruth dropped out of college, moved to San Francisco, and became a web engineer. He was also very active in the open source community. In a bar downtown, he met Tom Preston Werner, who was also into open source and the Ruby programming language. Both saw Git's potential, so they hit it off and decided to create a user-friendly open source tool for Git. They called it Logic Awesome, which later became the more intuitive GitHub. A few months later, Chris's former colleague, PJ Hyatt, joined them. In April 2018, the trio launched the beta version of GitHub.
So GitHub wasn't the very first Git hosting solution, but it clearly did something better than its predecessors. What made it stand out?
It was revolutionary because it was so much simpler, more intuitive, and even fun to use. It wasn't just an easy-to-use, aesthetically pleasing web-based Git repository. It also had social features like user profiles, followers, and dynamic news feeds. This allowed everyone to see the programming, collaboration, and results on public repositories. It initially caught on with Ruby developers and then spread to the wider open source community. Free public repositories attracted open source projects, while paid private repositories started bringing in corporate clients. In the 2010s, GitHub became the go-to tool for software companies.
And that's when it really blew up, becoming this massive force in the tech world. It went from a bar idea to the world's largest source code hosting platform. I mean, virtually all major modern open source projects have been published or hosted on GitHub, right?
Absolutely. Think about programming languages like Python and Rust, open source deep learning frameworks like TensorFlow and PyTorch, and even infrastructure supporting software deployment like Docker and Terraform, all there. So, when Microsoft acquired GitHub for $7.5 billion in 2018, there was significant skepticism. Many users questioned if GitHub could maintain its neutrality as a third-party platform. But at the time, Microsoft promised developers that GitHub would operate independently and that Microsoft wouldn't interfere with its openness. To underscore this, Microsoft even hired Nat Friedman, a respected figure in the tech world, to be GitHub's CEO.
And for a while, it seemed like they really stuck to that promise, didn't they? GitHub continued to thrive, the open source community kept growing, and there weren't those aggressive pushes for Microsoft's own ecosystem. What changed, or what was the turning point that might have led to this latest integration?
You're right. They largely honored their word. The open source ecosystem continued to flourish, and GitHub remained relatively independent. You didn't see it prioritizing Microsoft's Azure or Visual Studio ecosystem, nor were there aggressive fees or product strong-arming. In fact, in 2021, under Thomas Dohmke's leadership, GitHub even launched a major innovation, Copilot. This became the first widely adopted AI programming assistant. GitHub opened Copilot to all individual users in June 2022, months before the widespread emergence of GPT 3.5.
So Copilot was really groundbreaking for its time, showing the power of AI in coding. But now it seems like the AI programming assistant space is getting pretty crowded. Is that part of Microsoft's motivation here?
Exactly. While Copilot initially wowed developers and still boasts 20 million users, the AI landscape has evolved rapidly. Programming assistants quickly became a battleground for major tech companies and startups alike. The market saw other, perhaps even better, products emerge. You have new startups like Cursor, Windsurf, and Tray all coming out with similar functionalities. As Jasper John pointed out, essentially, if you have a good enough AI model, you can create a powerful coding agent. Cursor, for example, has really excelled and started to capture significant market share.
So, this competitive landscape is likely a huge driver for Microsoft's decision. It sounds like they see GitHub's future value less as just a code repository and more as a core AI development tool, with Copilot at its heart. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Many people suspect this is precisely why Microsoft is so tightly integrating GitHub with its Co-AI division. In the AI era, GitHub's biggest value is shifting. It's less about its role as a code repository and more